The year was 1946, deep in the Smoky Mountains, a baby girl entered the world with nothing but a voice destined to change it. Her family was so poor they paid the doctor who delivered her with a sack of cornmeal. Yet from that humble cabin rose a woman whose name would one day shine brighter than the Nashville lights themselves. That baby was Dolly Rebecca Parton, a girl born in poverty who grew into a global icon, a legend whose voice carried both her pain and her power. But behind the glitter, fame, and endless smiles, few truly know the woman she became, or the double life she kept hidden for decades. Decades later, Dolly Parton isn't just a country legend, she's a living monument to American culture. She's sold more than 100 million records, claimed 11 Grammy Awards from nearly 50 nominations, turned Dollywood into one of the most beloved destinations in the nation, and built a legacy of compassion through her imagination library, gifting over 200 million free books to children around the world. Her success is unmatched, her influence, undeniable. But beyond the wigs, the rhinestones, and that dazzling smile, lies a truth few have ever seen. For more than 30 years, Dolly Parton has been living two lives, one glittering beneath the spotlight and another quietly hidden in the shadows. The world fell in love with the performer, but behind the laughter and charm was a woman fighting to keep parts of herself private, protected, and painfully real. It's this divide, between Dolly the superstar and Dolly the soul behind the songs, that makes her story not just fascinating, but unforgettable. This isn't a story of scandal, it's a story of survival. Of a girl from the Smoky Mountains who learned early that to protect what's real, you sometimes have to hide behind what's glittering. Dolly Parton didn't wear a mask to deceive the world, she wore it to endure it. Her coat of many colors may have been made of rags, but her life was stitched together with layers far more complex than anyone ever realized. To understand the woman behind the sparkle, we have to start at the very beginning. Dolly Rebecca Parton was born on January 19, 1946, in Locust Ridge, Tennessee, a small, tucked-away community nestled in the Great Smoky Mountains. She was the fourth of 12 children born to Robert Lee Parton, a hard-working sharecropper and construction laborer, and Avi Lee Parton, a woman whose songs and faith held the family together when money couldn't. Legend has it that when Dolly came into the world, her father couldn't afford the doctor's fee, so he paid him with a sack of cornmeal. It's a story Dolly still tells with pride and laughter, not shame. Because for her, poverty wasn't a curse, it was the foundation of her truth. Those humble beginnings became the heartbeat of her music, inspiring timeless songs like Coat of Many Colors, written about the patchwork coat her mother lovingly sewed from scraps. It was more than clothing, it was a symbol of resilience, love, and the beauty of turning nothing into something extraordinary. Life in that small cabin was cramped, loud, and filled with music. Ali taught her kids Appalachian folk tunes, while Dolly soaked up the hymns she listened to in church. By the age of 10, she was already showcasing her talent on local radio stations in Knoxville. And by 13, she made her debut at the Grand Ole Opry, introduced by none other than Johnny Cash. Even at that young age, Dolly had a clear vision of her future. She famously remarked, "I always knew I was destined for more than a cabin in the woods. I just didn't realize how far I would need to travel to achieve it." Staying true to her aspirations, the very day after graduating high school in 1964, she packed her belongings and moved to Nashville, resolute in her pursuit of her dreams. The initial years were challenging. Nashville was teeming with aspiring artists, and Dolly's high mountain-inflected voice wasn't quite the mainstream sound of the era. However, her determination became her greatest asset. She signed with Monument Records, initially steered towards pop, but soon discovered her niche in country music. Her big break arrived when Porter Wagoner, the star of The Porter Wagoner Show, invited her to join him on television in 1967. This collaboration catapulted Dolly into the limelight. Together, they recorded duets, toured across the nation, and cultivated a devoted fan base. Yet, beneath the cheerful facade and coordinated outfits, Dolly was already demonstrating that she had a different path in mind, one where she refused to be anyone's supporting act. In 1974, Dolly made the difficult choice to leave Wagner's show to follow a solo career. To ease the transition, she penned I Will Always Love You, a heartfelt farewell ballad that would eventually become one of the most iconic songs in history. This single act perfectly encapsulates Dolly's dual existence. Appearing sweet on the outside, yet deeply rooted in tough choices, ambition, and the desire to carve out her own identity. The girl who entered the world with nothing but a sack of cornmeal to her name was now on the fast track to stardom. But fame, as Dolly soon discovered, demanded more than just a golden voice, it demanded an identity. A brand. A shield. And that's where her second life began to shimmer into existence. Ask Dolly Parton about her style, and she'll flash that knowing smile and say, "It costs a lot of money to look this cheap." It's a line that sounds like a joke, but behind it lies pure strategy. In the 1970s, country music was still a man's world, ruled by cowboy hats and stoic charm, where women were expected to be soft, sweet, and small. Dolly didn't play along. She rewrote the rules. She teased her hair to the heavens, painted her lips scarlet, and stepped on stage wrapped in sequins that could blind under the spotlight. Her inspiration? A woman from her hometown, gossiped about, judged harshly, but unforgettable. Dolly once said, "If that's trashy, then trashy sure looks fun." And with that, she transformed criticism into confidence. But here's the truth few recognized: her glitz wasn't vanity, it was armor. Every wig, every sparkle, every curve was part of a persona designed to distract, to deflect, to protect the woman underneath. By creating Dolly Parton, she gave the world something so dazzling to adore that they never thought to look past the shine. Dolly could keep her private life just that, secret, behind her armor. She has acknowledged sleeping in her makeup since she took her commitment very seriously. Why? Because she wanted to be prepared to meet the public without shattering the illusion in the event of an earthquake or fire that occurred in the middle of the night. Imagine giving your image that much thought. It may sound draining, but for Dolly, it was a matter of surviving in a field that quickly labels women as has-beens when they appear too normal. Naturally, Dolly took advantage of the attention. With a quip, she outwitted the tabloids who were speculating about plastic surgery. She used to joke, "I'll tuck it, suck it, or pluck it if it's bagging, sagging, or dragging." By doing this, she maintained narrative control by turning vulnerability into jokes. The way she struck a balance between openness and confidentiality, however, is maybe the most intriguing aspect. Dolly could spend hours discussing her makeup, wigs, and even her exaggerated bust line. However, she pulled the curtain tighter when it came to the more private aspects of her life, such as her marriage, her hardships, and her beliefs. Although they only knew the version she wanted them to see, fans believed they knew her. There was no deceit in this balancing act. It was a plan. She safeguarded Dolly's spirit by creating the spectacle for her. She established a place where she could manage her job, withstand the demands of celebrity, and maintain the integrity of her most profound beliefs. However, as we shall see, Dolly's contradictions simply became more numerous. In addition to being the sparkling queen of country, she also startled fans by pretending to be Playboy. In addition to writing gospel songs and pursuing crossover success on the pop and rock charts, she was a devoted Christian. She became a brand decades before that became the standard because she was altruistic and generous but also astutely business-minded. The rhinestones and the wig were more than simply a fashion accessory. She was able to live two lives because of them. She has one for herself and one for the world. Dolly Parton had established herself as a brand by the time the wigs reached skyscraper heights and the rhinestones were dazzling. All brands, however, have fine print. Invisible ink was used to write Dolly's. Let's begin with her marriage, the most persistent mystery. On May 30, 1966, Dolly Parton wed Carl Thomas Dean. There was only Dolly at the small ceremony. The preacher, her mother, Carl, and the preacher's spouse. She spent over 60 years with Carl. But he's a phantom to most fans. He doesn't go to red carpet events, he doesn't go out much, and he has consistently turned down interviews that could win him an Olympic medal. Infinite speculation was stoked by this. Was he real? Were they divorced in secret? Was there some secret romantic life that Dolly was hiding? She joked that many believed she had a mannequin in her closet, which she dubbed Carl, and she leaned into the rumors with a sense of humor. Actually, Carl just detested being in the spotlight. Carl was operating an asphalt paving business and leading a modest life in Nashville, while Dolly was creating Dollywood, performing in stadiums, and starring in 9 to 5. That contrast is quite amazing. At home, Carl is wearing work boots, and Dolly is stunning in sequins. It was among the most obvious manifestations of her double life. Dolly's faith comes next. She has never hesitated to discuss her Christian faith. Gospel music was ingrained in her from her upbringing in the Smoky Mountains. She claims to pray daily and has put out several gospel albums. But when Dolly posed for Playboy in 1978, conservative fans were taken aback. It wasn't her who posed naked. Even though she wore the well-known bunny suit ears, it was nearly scandalous for a farm girl who sang gospel to appear in Playboy. Afterwards, Dolly laughed and dismissed it, saying that she did it because she wanted to show off her cuteness at the time. It's just Dolly to have a Bible in one hand and bunny ears in the other. She was never easily categorized. Perhaps that's the secret. Keeping transgressions hidden was not the purpose of the double existence. Refusing to be pinned down was the key. The same is true of her music. Recall that she penned two of her most well-known songs, Jolene and I Will Always Love You, on a single night in 1973. One is about temptation and jealousy. The other is about saying goodbye. Dolly was navigating multiple emotional realms at once, as evidenced by her ability to channel such disparate feelings in one sitting. Her business empire comes next. Dollywood is viewed by fans as a theme park with roller coasters and cinnamon bread. However, Dolly is a clever entrepreneur behind the scenes. She has invested in media endeavors, owns several Dollywood-affiliated businesses, and has meticulously developed her brand. She minimizes this aspect of herself, though, frequently posing as a simple rural girl while making multi-million-dollar choices. The astute CEO concealed behind the glittering dresses is only another example of her double existence. Not to be overlooked is philanthropy. Since its founding in 1995, Dolly's Imagination Library has sent more than 200 million free books to kids worldwide. In addition to funding hospitals and scholarships, she is well known for having contributed $1 million to Vanderbilt University's COVID-19 vaccine research. She always quickly mocks her charity, though, claiming that she doesn't do it for attention. Dolly previously stated, "I just think it's important to give back if you've been blessed, and I've been more blessed than I ever deserved." Even her charitable giving, however, has a catch. The generosity is visible to the public. Dolly finds a purpose that stems from her early poverty and her faith, which she tends to keep to herself. Therefore, Dolly was living on two tracks by the 1980s and 1990s, one that was very private and the other that was blindingly public, and both of them were cooperating. The problem is that maintaining two lives is difficult, which raises the question of why she held on to that divide for so long. Although it may sound glamorous, juggling two lives is actually more like juggling fire. Dolly ran it for many years. And the causes go beyond clever comebacks and wigs. The pressure of celebrity is the first. Imagine waking up each day with the knowledge that millions of people are entitled to your heartbreaks, secrets, and story. Dolly realized early on that if you don't create boundaries, stardom can consume you. She kept the sensitive portions of her heart hidden while giving her audience something to savor by crafting a sparkling version of herself. Sequentially, it was self-preservation. Let's discuss gender second. In the 1960s, when women were frequently supposed to be pleasant, obedient, and secondary, Dolly made her debut in country music by accentuating her femininity with her wigs, makeup, and jokes about her body. Before anyone else could turn the joke against her, she took charge of it. She laughed harder when people criticized her for being too ostentatious. She used her bust as a punchline when they made fun of it. Power is that. Additionally, she was able to ascend ladders that could have otherwise been dragged away thanks to that persona. The third is control. Dolly was more than just a vocalist. She was an entrepreneur and songwriter. Her publishing rights belonged to her. When Whitney Houston's rendition of I Will Always Love You became one of the all-time best-selling singles, it was this act that guaranteed her millions. She understood that she needed to play the long game in order to maintain control over both her music and her finances. While the private Dolly signed contracts, established empires, and played chess while everyone else believed she was playing checkers, the public Dolly diverted the attention of the world. There were dangers associated with living a second life, though. Rumors were fueled by keeping secrets. Tabloids conjectured about her sexual orientation, marital status, and alleged extramarital affairs with co-stars for decades. People are constantly talking, Dolly said, dismissing them with a sense of humor. At least they're ignoring someone else if they're discussing me. However, constantly evading questions and revising your responses must have taken a toll on your mind. There were times when the tension became apparent. Dolly pauses before responding to inquiries about Carl Dean or loneliness when traveling in interviews from the 1980s. In her autobiography Dolly, My Life, and Other Unfinished Business, published in 1994, she acknowledged experiencing periods of self-doubt and sadness. As a clear reminder that underneath the wigs was a human being attempting to cope, she even admitted to having suicidal thoughts during a time in the 1980s. If living a double life was so draining, why would you keep it? Because that was worse than giving it all away. Dolly once stated, I'm not going to limit myself just because people won't accept the fact that I can do something else. By keeping her private and public selves apart, she allowed herself to grow, try new things, and thrive. And it was brilliant, in a way. Consider it this way. Fans were amused when they witnessed Dolly making jokes about her breast while wearing a rhinestone jumpsuit. Dolly was secure when she got home, removed the wig, and sat on their porch with Carl Dean. Though they didn't have to coincide, both lives were important. It was nevertheless a high-wire act to maintain that balance for 30 years. There were also times when the rope shook, as is common with high-wire acts. Dolly was reminded that she was more than just sass and sequins when her private life emerged from behind the curtain. Dolly made sure that a portion of her life remained unaffected by celebrity by keeping Carl out of the spotlight. It was a deception. Both Dolly Parton, the world-renowned celebrity, and Dolly Parton, the private spouse who prepared meals at home. In a field that devours people whole, that duality is what kept her sane. Her struggle with depression in the 1980s, which she later detailed in her biography, My Life and Other Unfinished Business, was little known to her fans. She covered it up with her usual vigor and comedy. But beneath the glitz, she was secretly dealing with mental stress, grief, and health problems. She didn't talk about those experiences until years later, demonstrating once more that the Dolly we saw on stage was only half the tale. That is to say, Dolly's dazzling mask was not a lie. It was a plan. It was her way of keeping what she really needed for herself while giving us exactly what we desired. On the one hand, Foot is the epitome of Southern hospitality, kind, and focused on family. Conversely, she is bold, edgy, and totally unafraid to upset the world. Who else could pose as Playboy and donate millions to medical research and children's literacy? That's Dolly. In 1978, she donned the recognizable rabbit ensemble. For her husband's birthday, she later performed it again at the age of 75, telling audiences, I did it because I still had the boobs in the waistline. The traditional Dolly. Her philanthropy comes next. Giving back isn't all that Dolly does. She reimagines what it means to give back. Since starting as a little organization in Tennessee, her Imagination Library has sent more than $200 million free books to kids all around the world. In 2020, she also subtly contributed $1 million to support Moderna's CO-19 vaccine development, a move that made people joke, forget superheroes. We can go outside again because of Dolly Parton. Her paradoxes become even more wonderful from this point on. Despite her success in the country music industry, Dolly has never shied away from experimenting with different genres. Inside the 1980s, she crossed over into pop with hits like 9 to 5 and Right Here You Return Again. And in 2023 at 77 years vintage, she went full rocker along with her album Rockstar. We are speaking duets with Paul McCartney, Elton John, Stevie Nicks, and Extra. Fanatics were greatly surprised, critics have been inspired, and Dolly just grinned. She admitted she simplest made the document because she changed into inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Reputation and felt she needed to earn it. It's Dolly's fashion. While challenged, she does not simply display up. She indicates up larger, bolder, and sparklier than every person else. But, underneath all the contradictions, there is a through line. Dolly does what Dolly desires. She's no longer sure by way of categories or expectancies. She can be wholesome and attractive, humble and flamboyant, non-public and large-than lifestyles, all at the same time. It really is the ambiguity that makes her timeless. Dolly Parton's tale is the remaining American fairy tale. She became born in a one-room cabin within the Smoky Mountains, paid for with a sack of cornmeal. She grew up without electricity, without plumbing, often without shoes. But, she turned the once humble beginnings into the foundation of one of the most first-rate careers in track history. Her so-known as double life wasn't approximately scandal. It became about survival. Dolly built a mind-blowing public personality that allowed her to shine on level whilst keeping her real self safe backstage. For 30 years, she lived that double lifestyle seamlessly, fooling no one, but at the same time fooling all people. And maybe it's the real lesson. Dolly Parton teaches us which you do not must be just one component. You could be glitter and grit, faith and freedom, delusion and fact. You can be Dolly Parton the icon and Dolly Parton the female, and you could permit each lives flourish without compromise. So whilst we are saying Dolly lived a double lifestyles for 30 years, what we clearly suggest is this. Dolly lived lifestyles on her own terms. And in doing so, she didn't simply become a celeb. She had become folklore, a dwelling legend whose tale may be told lengthy after the last rhinestone fades. Thank you for looking till the stop. Via the manner, which Dolly Parton double lifestyles moment surprised you maximum? Let us recognize inside the comments. And at the same time as you are down there, tap like, subscribe, and ring the bell so that you're usually inside the front row for our subsequent content.